Hello there, welcome. I'm going to start with a little bit of old news. I was going to update it, but I think the update will have to, I'm going to leave it for another video. I'm referring to the announcement by President Trump that he's going to open up a camp in Guantanamo Bay, and he's going to send open for 30,000 of those deportees that he's sending. I'm going to leave that. I think that needs a little bit of more reflection. Also because sometimes he says things, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen necessarily, certainly not happen straight away. He has to get the funding, it has to be built, because at the moment there is a prison there. Well, there is a base there, but I want to look more into this history of Guantanamo in Cuba and how that came about. I know about the Cuban crisis, but how the United States were able to keep that part of Guantanamo. There was that song in the 60s, you remember, Guantanamera. All right, but I am going to talk about this whole news, as I said, but about Colombia and a few more things. I was going to title this Shame. Shame, but I don't think I'm going to call it, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. The Colombian incident, okay? Gustavo Petro is the prime minister there, the president. Okay, and what we heard was that Mr. Petro sent, he sent 2 planes to the United States to pick up those detainees, those people, deported people, okay? And of course he caved in because President Trump told him, we are sending them to you, and he said, no way. And then he said, well, I will put on tariffs, 25% tariffs. And so Gustavo Petro caved in, and he said, oh, okay. And so they were sent. The story, as I hear it from Latin American sources, is a little bit more complex. What was going to happen was that, first of all, these people are deported. They are not detained as such. To be detained for a crime, I know that they say these are criminals and so on. I have no way of doubting that. I suppose that they are. But they were not detained to be prosecuted as criminals. They were simply deportees, okay? So they were put on 2 military United States planes, and they were handcuffed with chains around their ankles. And what happened was that Petro said, I will not accept you sending me people in handcuffs as ordinary criminals. They haven't been prosecuted, they haven't been perhaps accused, but certainly not judged as such. And they're not coming into the country with, in handcuffs and chains around there. So he said, the first thing is that he agreed, and we all agree, that the United States has a right as a country to send out deportees, especially people who were there illegally. That is not the question. We agree, and I agree, that they have every right to deport people who are there illegally. I would even actually go further than that. I would say that a country, even if you're there legally that the country should have the right to say who is welcome there and who is not welcome there. And they could expel anyone, even if legally, that they no longer want there. It is not, of course, the case if you were born in another country and then you took up the citizenship of that country, then you are a citizen of that country. But I would go even as far as that a country has the right to say, no, you're not welcome here. So I'm not disputing that at all. And President Petro was not disputing that. Those people were there illegally, therefore the United States had every right to deport them. That was not the question. And obviously he had to accept them because they were citizens of Colombia. What he didn't want is for them to be handcuffed and with chains around their feet and to be treated and humiliated in that manner. So he said, no, I will send 2 planes myself from the Colombian military and will bring them home. I think that although the United States has every right to deport them, I don't think they need to go overboard and humiliate them in that fashion. I think they're punching down a little bit, and I find that uncomfortable. These people, the majority of the people, I think a tremendous amount, like 10 million or something, when they are illegally, the United States did nothing to stop them. I'm sure there are people who are criminals and all that, okay. I don't think that there are 10 million criminals there. I think the majority of these people are just poor people who said, oh my goodness, there are no borders now, so let's go, because the United States, you come from a poor country. And you say, well, the streets are still paved with gold. They just went, they thought, okay. I don't think there are 10 million criminals there. But in any case, I think that when you are deporting them, you can deport them. But you don't need to make a circus out of people's misery either. I find that a little bit deplorable. Just deport them and spare us the humiliation and the circus. Just deport them. I think the same happened with Brazil, the same situation, and also with Honduras. Anyway, I was thinking about this because the history of Latin America, I'm going to prepare something for you. For 2 centuries now, that continent has been colonialized for a very long time, yes, but even after the wars of independence, there was, as Simon Bolivar himself said at the end, that another colonization had started to take place. And it has been going on for 200 years. And the problem with Latin America is that the United States has had such control over those countries that the ordinary people can't really make great differences in their voting or anything, because whenever they have control over who is in power and who gets elected and who is not. In other words, the top is very corrupt. And whenever the people from below try to change that dictator or that, they don't have the old-fashioned military dictators anymore, but they are still all paid off practically, a lot of them. And so the people from the ground up haven't really been able to change this situation. And this has been going on for 200 years now. And I don't know what the solution is going to be. I think that they will have to reunite as they were before they were split up into little countries. The Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, all that was one country, as it were, Chile. They were split up into little sections of countries, and they haven't been able to do anything about their circumstances. They are really a colony, yeah. And so the people go to the United States hoping for a better life. Okay, so what I'm saying is that just deport them, but don't make a circus out of it. Petro responded. It wasn't as if he said, "Oh yes, okay." He insisted in this little bit. He could have gone on. If it was me, I would have said, "Yes, of course I'll accept them. They are citizens of this country. But I tell you what, Mr. President, you have a military base here in Colombia, right? Well, start packing." But what do you mean start packing? Do you think, well, you're out. And I would have created a crisis on purpose. I would have talked to the people. I would have said, we are tired of being humiliated in this manner, and force a crisis that will induce Latin American countries to come together. Perhaps they'll have to go to BRICS. Perhaps their only solution is to come together and ask China and Russia to help them out and protect them. Because there is no other way. They will continue like that. And the basis in Latin America is not the worst thing. When I said that the leaders are corrupt, look at Milei in Argentina. The first thing he did was to go to Israel. And the second thing he did was to send Argentinian gold to London, to the city of London. And the people, whenever they try to do something, the big stick comes and they can't do anything. They have to think of uniting in some sort of front. Individually, they can do nothing. But the worst thing here in Latin America is also the sudden command of the United States there. They are the heir to that school of the Americas. Oh my goodness. That great academy of coups, and whenever there was a resurgence of guerrillas fighting the dictator, put them down. The death squads. The history of Latin America, especially after the American Civil War, the Manifest Destiny, the Monroe Doctrine, they have to start thinking about not falling into that easy stand of accepting everything that is thrown at them. I repeat that the United States has every right to get rid of illegal people. And the Gulf of Mexico, yes, okay. Google has already changed the name. The Panama Canal thing I already referred to, in that it is not true that they're charging the United States more. They have a list of all the ships that go through there. All of them pay the same thing, but in any case, let's move on. No, but it has been from the sinking of the Maine that started the Spanish-American War at the end of the 19th century, when they kept, Cuba and Puerto Rico. 2 centuries, really, of government, people in government who are sellouts. Vendepatrias, they call them in Spanish, selling out, the sellers of the homeland. I just want to give you an example, because I have looked into it. This is just an example, and it's just about little Cuba over there. The classified documents, the Norwood's documents from 1962, that talk about the false flags at that time already that the United States were doing in the Cuba case. Some of them have been declassified for a long time, but some of them are being opened now. And there you read the plan, in order to attack Cuba, all the false flags that the United States would carry out. They call it hypothetical terrorist attacks from Cuba to the United States, which they wouldn't be attacks from Cuba to the United States. They would be false flags. I'll give you a few. And it reads that it was intended to implement the following. These were some of the false flags. An explosion of an American ship in Guantanamo, terrorist attacks in Miami and other Florida cities done by them, by the Cubans. They would be done by the United States. And the secret services, the CIA and so on, should place bombs in public places and attack Cuban refugees and blame the Cubans for it. Also, the shooting down of a civil airplane with subsequent media coverage and accusations against Cuba, that Cuba had done it. A civil plane that the secret services themselves would actually carry out the attack. Also an attack of an American military base near Cuba. Of course, the Cubans would be blamed for it. So many that, at what point they had reached that point where they are actually willing, the documents are there, they're willing to kill their own citizens almost to justify a false aggression by Cuba. This is not new. Many times, as we all know, false flags, I don't need to remind you, have been used to justify American intervention abroad. Planes, ships, well, we start with the Maine, and in the Spanish-American War, we also remember the Gulf of Tonkin. You remember the Gulf of Tonkin, which led to the American escalation in Vietnam. evil-minded people like you and I, not you, just I, wonder, how about this or that or the other incident, all these false flags. Anyway, started with the Maine against Spain. The sinking of the Lusitania led the US to enter the World War I. The Pearl Harbor led to the United States enter World War II. There is a lot here about Pearl Harbor, yes. The Japanese had issued a declaration of war, and they transmitted this declaration and what was going to happen 4 hours before the attack on Pearl Harbor. And it seems we now know that the government sort of received it and put that in a drawer, and they said that they never received anything, and waits until there is actually the attack, and they say that they had been attacked treacherously. That seems that was not the case, because they had been warned that they're going to attack. But in any case, they knew it beforehand too, because they had already decoded the Japanese codes anyway, that enabled to know what was going to happen, and also enabled the United States to take away the aircraft carriers there. But in any case, 3,000 people were dead. How many ships sank at the end? Probably 3 or 4. The famous Arizona, and perhaps 2 more. And another 2 that were affected but were repaired and put back into operation. So 2 or 3 ships sank. We also have to say that Japan, to a certain extent, I'm not a fan of Japan and how cruel they were with the Chinese and everybody else. So there are no saints here. But Japan they had put an embargo on Japanese commerce, sanctions, the usual thing. The old gunboat diplomacy. Okay, so that's one thing. Moving on to another something different. I think it was the 27th of January, Auschwitz. They were all there commemorating when the concentration camps of the World War II, when they were found and so on. And what I found it almost shameful, actually, that the people who were the ones who found the camps, who liberated them, which were the Soviets, were not invited. And who were there? The Germans were there, the Austrians were there, Zelensky was there, the Baltics were there. It's sort of the Ministry of Truth rewriting history here. I find it really shameful. There is a black legend of Russia. The British have had this thing about the Russian Empire for the last 300 years, and it's not over. So it seems as if, the United States and Britain won the Second World War and the Russians were just there passing by, lending a hand. I don't think that's fair. Okay, moving on to another topic. Greenland. Okay, so so the Danish government apparently is going to increase the defense budget by I don't know how many hundreds of millions. It seems that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, actually called the Prime Minister of Denmark. I haven't written her name down. It's a middle-aged woman. I'm so sorry. I know I did, but then my computer broke down and then I had to rewrite the whole thing and I forgot it. All right. So, but in any case, the Prime Minister of Denmark. Apparently they had a conversation for about 45 minutes. And rumors and gossip say that she was left practically trembling, livid in some sort of way, so much, I don't know that this is true or not, but so much that they actually had to go immediately to the bathroom, they said. We don't know what for. But the conversation was not, this is my intention, can we start talking about this, we would like to buy it, or how much, or whatever. No, it wasn't about that. It was very much a sort of this is not a negotiation, I am informing you that I'm going to keep it. And so the Danes are going to increase the defense budget for what? Speaking in military terms, I mean, what does it mean that is Denmark going to send a projection force to Greenland capable of confronting the US Navy and the American forces? What are we talking about? Is this a Punch and Judy show that we are seeing? Denmark, relatively small country, it has no weapons anyway. They were all sent to Ukraine. Imbeciles. Because the threat always comes from Russia, doesn't it? Now they have no weapons. So you need weapons now. Oh, you will have to buy some weapons now. Who will you buy your weapons from? Not from Russia. From where? And the other NATO countries support? There was a silence there. There was a silence there. Anyone is saying anything? The new Commissioner of Defense in the European Union, he's a Lithuanian, Kubilius is his name. He said, quote, "The European Commission must help to prolong the conflict in Ukraine, to contain Russia and prepare for war in the next 5 years." End of quote. Are you saying that the countries that form the European Union, that Europe has to prepare for war with Russia in the next 5 years? What are these people saying? It's just that I don't know whether to laugh or cry sometimes. It depends on my mood, To defend Europe, well, at least we won't have Greenland, so it's one country less to defend, I suppose. And the Baltic countries, the Kaja Kallas, the defense minister, what is she? The defense minister of the EU from Estonia. She says, quote, I got a quote from her, increase spending on defense. We have to increase spending on defense and reduce spending on education and health. That is her solution for the countries that form the European Union. Reduce spending on health and education and increase spending on defense. Okay, so no education, okay? Reduce spending on health. What are we going to are we going to have to go back to the shamans and the healers and what I was thinking about this. How do I reply to a person? How do I say something about a minister or a secretary or someone in power who says we have to reduce spending on health and education and increase spending on defense because we are going to war with Russia, or we have whatever. And I was in a better mood this morning, so I thought of going to this just to give you a little bit of smile or a little bit of laughter, really, in these very serious things. But this is Lucan, Pharsalia, where he tells us about. He was a satirist. I have read him to you. I have quoted from him a number of times. He's a satirist, and he writes about Erichto, who was a woman, and she was actually, what happened was that he had a woman lover, and she left him, basically dumped him, okay? And she was a perfumist, okay? 1st century AD. And she was a perfumist, and she would, all these things, okay? So he confessed later on that it was all a joke and he exaggerated, but he wrote about her, giving her a different name, Erichto, okay? And he has her as this witch and sorceress, and who will do anything, whatever a witch, okay? And she would bring people, she could of course kill people, and she could also bring people from the dead to life anyway. But she used all these lotions and potions and things and to cure you or to kill you anyway. And he says, look, this was one of his one of her potion things. First, she would make several cuts in your chest. Then wash out the contents of your veins, and then poured in warm menstrual blood. Some of you guys are going, this is part of the whole thing that she would give you. And then poured in warm menstrual blood, mixed with every kind of unnatural poison, which consisted of, among other things, the froth of dogs suffering from hydrophobia, a lynx guts, the hump of a hyena fed on corpses, the marrow of a stag fed on snakes. It's all going into the pot. A sack of fish that can keep a ship motionless in the high seas. A dragon's eyes. Eagle stones. A seraphim. And then some Red Sea vipers, the sloughed skin of a Libyan horned snake, the ashes of a phoenix stolen from the altar at Heliopolis. All that she would put into, mix it, okay? And to these commoner ingredients, she would add bewitched leaves of plants that she had first spat upon, thereby steeping them in the venom of her own body. Anyway, that was Richter. The eagle stones, I didn't know what he meant by eagle stones, and I looked it up. And eagle stones, also known as aetites, are hollow stones that were once believed to be carried by eagles to their nests. They were thought to have supernatural properties and were used as amulets in Europe and the Mediterranean. Okay, so eagle stones went into the whole thing. Anyway, look, I'm just trying to smile a little bit, because how can we prepare in the next 5 years from these Russian hordes that will come and sweep Europe all the way to Lisbon? Actually, the rooster Macron said that he would send troops to Greenland, and he also said that he would send troops to the Ukraine. So I don't know whether he's a rooster or a capon, whatever. Anyway, but this bunch of lunatics from the Baltics, I'm really getting a little bit tired of all of them. They all agree. Oh yes, when President Trump said you have to increase it to 5%, you know that he says 5% because he's probably going to end up saying 3 or accepting 3, whatever, okay? But no, the Baltics, these 3 little countries, they are, yes, 5%, and they're going to increase the budget to 5%. Had he asked for 10%, they would say 10%, fine, 10%. The lunatics. If you ever have the time or the inclination, research a little bit about the economy of the Baltic states. What do they produce exactly? How about the demography? How many people left the countries since their independence from the Soviet Union? What do they do? Because it's very strange. They have so assumed European Union values, the rules-based order. They are there on the vanguard. Well, they can reduce actually education and health costs, because since their independence, they've lost half of their population. People left. Their citizens have left. Because what they are really launderettes, they're really laundromats, like bank kiosks, devoted to laundering money. That is what they do, to launder money. That is what the Baltic states are and what they do. And for some reason, the European Union has given them all these high-ranking positions to them in the European Union. To people whose countries are there laundering money. Postage stamps countries. So radicalized against Russia. They're not helping. The famous Latvia Legion in World War II, they still commemorate, of course they helped the Nazis, yeah? And they still are commemorated. Once a year they have a parade, and they have some old guys coming dressed up with the regalia of that party. I don't really care about what some very old people can do if they want to parade, but to see them there commemorating there on the 27th of January at Auschwitz is a little bit much. They all come, most of them in any case, from very corrupt families from those previous regimes. And I think I said before, the Kayakalas actually from the nomenclature of the old Soviet Union. He used to be the big boss of the banks in the Soviet Union. And this type of characters have been given this importance now within the bureaucratic Brussels framework. It's really strange. One question: where do you think that the Estonia's administration of state is? The whole administrative state, where do you think is located? Not in Tallinn, the capital. In Luxembourg. In Luxembourg. In Luxembourg? Why? Why Luxembourg? It's not because it is a tax haven, is it? And Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, that cockatoo, is a noisy parrot with movable crest. He's not the head of NATO, we know now. He is the official cockatoo Secretary General. He has no say in anything, no say at all. He is the American spokesman. He is a parrot who repeats what he is told to say. And he goes to this country and he goes to that country, telling them this, telling them that. He's trying now to it's going all over the place, trying to get them to increase the defense budget. All the countries of the EU. My goodness. Let me give you some statistics about EU countries. Now, they're old, but not very old. They are from October 24. And they are projections to the end of the year, so it's just the end of 2024. And this data from the IMF, the European Bank, Allianz. In other words, they are not suspicious, they are the official figures accepted about growth and development in the European economies. And this is from October the 24th. Okay, so the GDP growth. The first one was for that year, Malta grew 5%. Malta is a small country. Tourism. There is a little bit of a financial merry-do, but never mind. Second, Serbia, the evil ones, bombed to smithereens by NATO, who is pro-Russian, grew 3.9%. The bronze medal, third place, is Belarus, 3.6% grew. They are also pro-Russian, I think. Number 4, 3.6% Russia. 5, Croatia. They're also against the war in Ukraine, I think. They grew 3.4%. Cyprus is number 6. There used to be a lot of Russian tourists there. Then they have Turkey 3%, Poland 3%, Spain 2.9%, Lithuanian 2.4%. Anyway, but all those countries, but the average of countries in the EU is 1.7%. Below 1.7% are Germany, France, Italy. They counted the UK. This is the EU. In other words, it's like, the economy is like the Titanic now, that is just going to collide. I don't know. Except that women and children won't go first. Well, the musicians are there. Who do you think will go first? Anyway. Okay, another something else completely different. And it is, it really, really upset me too. With the Robert Kennedy confirmation hearing and all that, and you've heard, yes, that Caroline Kennedy, President Kennedy's daughter, and his cousin wrote this letter to the New York Times, and it's a horrific letter. They're obviously, she calls him a predator. She says that he used to put mice and something in the blender. Oh my goodness, Candace Owens has a little thing about it, saying, but look, how could you put that in a blender when he was in college? So considering that he's now 70 years old, he was probably in college in the 70s. Now, the blenders in the 70s were, I don't know that you remember those blenders, but I mean, you couldn't anyway, the letter is horrific. I'm sure you've seen it because everyone is talking about it. But what I saw also was not only that, her son is John Schlossberg, John Bouvier Kennedy Schlossberg, okay, he was born in 1993, so a young man, the youngest. I think she has 3 children, and he has a video imitating Robert Kennedy's voice, that he has this thing, and he's making fun of him. And it's really, really in bad taste. How? What happened here? I don't even want to know, but to have these young men laughing at Robert Kennedy for his, inability to speak properly. I don't know what happened to him, but when he was young, he didn't have that, so it must have been some illness or perhaps an operation. I don't know how it came about. But in any case, and you can see when he speaks that he's forcing himself. For a young man to mock him in this savage manner is just, I was really surprised. So these are all the things that I said, how am I going to call this video? Shameful, I don't know. I'll have to think of something. Anyway, I'll better leave it here. And I thank you for listening to me again. Bye-bye.